A quick shout out to the folks over at the Super Mario Bros. Movie Archive website. I got a ton of my information from there. They've got an astonishing amount of stuff, including interviews, behind-the-scene facts, and all the scripts involved in the production. Feed your Mario movie curiosity by visiting them at www.smbmovie.com. Thanks a bunch, guys. Trust the fungus. Super Mario Bros. Typically referred to as one of the worst video game movie adaptations of all time. I say video game movie because the honor of worst movie in general of all time finally goes to something else. Man, it feels good to be finally able to say that. But was Super Mario Bros. Really as bad as people made it out to be? I mean, to this day, a lot of people regard it as one of cinema's biggest turds. Yet somehow, despite that, and despite the bad ratings and the universal acknowledgement that it wasn't really a very good movie at all, there's been a bit of a cult following growing. There are people who genuinely like this movie, as hard as it may be to believe. This video will hopefully shed some light on that. On why exactly people like me enjoy what a lot of people regard as the worst video game movie of all time. I mean, is it really impossible for a bad movie to have some fans? I've seen it happen before. I mean, come on, anything's possible.
Anything's possible, Mario, you just gotta believe.
Though, let's not kid ourselves. There's no getting around the fact that even a lot of the cast and crew didn't like making the movie. In fact, the late Bob Hoskins, who played Mario, has been quoted in saying in an interview, "The worst thing I ever did? Super Mario Bros. It was a f***ing nightmare. The whole experience was a nightmare. It had a husband and wife team directing whose arrogance had been mistaken for talent. After so many weeks, their own agent told them to get off the set. F***ing nightmare. F***ing idiots." And it wasn't just Hoskins who felt that way. In a report from The Guardian, Dennis Hopper, who played King Koopa in the movie, reportedly went into a 45-minute tirade at one point about how frustrating working for the movie was. And honestly, you can't really blame the guy. At that point, they were rewriting the script as they were filming. So why so many rewrites? Well, the directors had a particular vision for the film. However, so did the producers, and so did the distributors. On one hand, you had a vision of something which was much more mature and satirical, something to draw in a wider audience, a more mature audience. On the other hand, you had a vision of a family-friendly adventure with some exciting action scenes and lighthearted humor. It's the main reason why we kinda got what we got. In fact, when Ed Solomon, one of the screenwriters who were tapped to rewrite the script, presented his finished rewrite to director Rocky Morton, Rocky Morton literally cut it up and taped it like to other parts of the scripts that he liked. I mean, the man literally cut and pasted stuff. I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. You gotta forgive me, but you're gonna hear a lot of loathe and hatred to the directing team of Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jenkel. A directing team duo that refused to listen to input and who were actually barred from directing the film at one point because of it. They had this unreasonable stubbornness that made the whole filming process unbearable for nearly everyone involved. I mean, needless to say, I don't like those guys. Fun fact: a lot of the cast, including Dennis Hopper, Bob Hoskins, and John Leguizamo, didn't bother to learn their lines late into the shooting of the film, because that's how much the scripts changed. Bonus fun fact: another thing that resulted in the constant fluctuation of the scripts was Fisher Stevens, who played Iggy, and Richard Edson, who played Spike, asked if they can just do their own dialogue. The writers agreed, and as a result, Stevens and Edson's performance was 90% improvised, including a little hot dog gimmick at the beginning.
They say it's dark.
Don't blow it this time.
Though I'm willing to bet that producer Roland Joffe is the catalyst that ended up planting the idea that Super Mario Bros. Should be a nitty-gritty, Mad Max-esque dystopian future. After striking a deal with Nintendo for 2 million clams, Jaffe told Nintendo that he didn't want to do a sweet little lovey-dovey story. He wanted to appeal to a wider audience, which is probably where the other two came in, and he wanted to do Super Mario Brothers, but probably in the same way that Tim Burton did Batman. You know, it's funny. The movie probably would have done way better as a sweet lovey-dovey story, you know? Heck, we would have at least had some consistency, some coherency, you know? We would have been able to follow the movie a little better. I mean, 1 minute it's a when boy meets girl story taking place in New York, and then the next minute you've got two main characters in a dance club with a stripper dancing in the background. Yep, the directors thought it was a great idea to hire strippers for a movie called Super Mario Brothers. I swear, those two... So, even with all of those elements in play, why did some people like me enjoy the film? Well, that's a tough question to answer, to be, really honest. Mostly because I'm not sure how to answer it. I mean, I fully acknowledge that this isn't a stellar movie by any means. In fact, one of the nicer things that folks say about the movie is that it's an interesting artifact from the times. Alright, so let me go over some of the things that I actually like about the movie. Again, I ain't saying it's a cinematic masterpiece. I'm just going over what I personally think worked for the movie. Number 1. The cast make do with what they've got. For a movie that has 7 whole scripts to its name...
Well, yes, that's 7!
I like the chemistry between Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. In the movie, Mario is down-to-earth and realistic about life, while Luigi has his head in the clouds, dreaming about alternate dimensions and relying on his instinct to get him to where he needs to be. It results in some pretty humorous banter between the two.
You know, I read that sea turtles navigate thousands of miles on instinct.
Not in New York traffic, they don't.
Well, what are you complaining about? Come on, we're here, aren't we?
You're getting worse.
I'm getting worse.
How did we get into sea turtles?
Pastor, what'd I tell you, huh?
It's a miracle we made it
I
alive.
thought you didn't believe in miracles, Mr. Tough Guy, huh?
It also probably helps that they did quite a bit of drinking while they were filming. Number 2. The music. You know, they managed to hire Alvin Silvestri, who is one of the best musical composers in Hollywood. Very high pedigree, for a movie that was kind of doomed to failure. But at this point, he had composed music for movies like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, The Bodyguard, Death Becomes Her, Fern Gully The Last Rainforest, and all 3 Back to the Future movies, including The Ride. I honestly love the music in this film. At least you knew that Silvestri had a focus on what he was going for as far as the score. I mean, you had Mario and Luigi's melody that sprinkled all throughout the movie.
I hope the guy downstairs knows where we're going.
You also get a little cliche Italian man. I think it was Tarantella. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I never heard that melody in like a serious. Oh no, we're dealing with some crap sort of tone. Honestly, the soundtrack is totally underrated, and I'll fight you on that. The only way you can get the music from the film is actually buying the limited edition soundtrack released in 1998 that also contained the soundtrack to another film of Alan Silvestri's called No Mercy. Only 500 copies of the soundtrack were made. I mean, I don't know which one I got, but I can proudly say I own one of them. Number 3. Heroic plumbing. Now, this is probably the only movie in existence to showcase plumbing in a heroic light. Mario and Luigi fix sabotage plumbing, they use their plumbing tools as offensive weapons, they use them to sabotage the villain's lair, they even use their plumbing tools to prevent the real world and Dino Haddon from ultimately merging. Yes, I know, it's corny, but I thought it was cool, and I still do kind of think it's kind of cool. Though it is problematic when they issue an APB looking for plumbers. I mean, come on, boys. A little bit of a dead giveaway, isn't it?
Plumbers!
No, he is. I'm just apprenticing.
Yeah, nice try, Luigi. Number 4. The humor. One of the things that were constantly being rewritten into the film, especially on the final shooting script, was the lighter tone. This was most likely done against the wishes of the directors, but it's something that the movie, honestly, I think really needed. Otherwise, it's too gritty and dark and without nothing to balance it out.
Oh, how's Daniela? Is she all right?
Daniela! I promise to take her to WrestleMania.
Fun fact. About the last clip we just saw, Bob Hoskins' Mario is apparently a fan of professional wrestling. Professional wrestler Captain Lou Albano portrayed Mario in the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. It's like going full circle there. Go figure. But alas, as with most things, there's a good side and there's a bad side. Though with this particular movie, the bad side tends to overshadow the good. Due to so many changes, so many literal cutting and pasting of so many different amalgamations of scripts, I mean, it was pretty hard to nail down a single tone for the movie. I mean, this includes the removal of dozens of scenes and subplots that were there just to make the movie make sense. I mean, did you know that there was supposed to be an entire story arc between Mario and Luigi as they both deal with their family pride? It was a little subplot that was meant to flesh out their characters. Luigi was doubting his family pride while Mario resented Luigi for both having to raise him and getting them into their current predicament. That's the main reason you see them bickering throughout most of the movie. It takes place when the Marios get arrested due to Koopa's plumber APB. That's not vital to the plot or anything, but it would have added a welcome layer of character development. Another thing that they removed, which was actually filmed, was the confrontation between the Mario brothers and the two plumbing goons who worked for Scapelli, that you only get to see running away after they sabotage the pipes in the dinosaur pit of the I know a little too much about this movie. You know, the Scapelli is the oily business tycoon that would have you screaming for a restraining order the minute you saw him. You know, you're that guy. Once Mario and Luigi arrived at the Riverfront Cafe at the beginning of the movie, we were supposed to follow them in and find out that Scapelli not only seems like a no-good crooked contractor, he was one. This scene was preserved in the novelization of the movie. Yeah, this movie had a novelization too. The scene helps establish why Mario put such an emphasis on taking care of their plumbing tools. Literally actually says, you know, don't touch my tools, you know, like the card says right up here. This further explained why the Marios have been going broke as mentioned in the beginning of the movie. Somehow Scapelli's plumbers punks keep beating them to jobs, even when the Mario brothers themselves are called to the job. Another issue the movie had was its often conflicting tone, as mentioned before. This was originally supposed to be a family film. I mean, I can understand the whole go big and go home attitude, but come on! They hired strippers. I'm not letting that go. They hired actual strippers for a dance club scene. Not to mention that whole awkward dance between Mario and Big Bertha. Yeah, you know, the fish. Not to mention the Triple X movie in the background in one scene, Koopa trying to push himself on Daisy, Yoshi getting stabbed. I mean, jeez, you could tell this movie was being pulled every which way by the directors, producers, and distributors. They couldn't agree on a singular theme. I honestly believe that this movie would have worked out just fine if it had focus on theme and story. Or, you know, keep the stark contrast and gritty background theme. Just streamline the plot so it's a little more coherent. Sprinkle some more lighthearted humor. Get the weird scenes out that's gonna have kids confused asking mommy, Mommy, why is Mario trying to motorboat a big lady? And you'd have yourself at least a mediocre movie. Which, honestly, a mediocre movie is what this movie deserved. Mediocrity, at the very least. As the first entry to video game movies, dang it, it deserved a lot more than what it got. When all is said and done, yes, this is a bad movie. A bad movie for cast, crew, and audiences. And yeah, there's a general consensus of hatred for it for many reasons, many good reasons. However, me and a good couple of other people, well, even though with everything else going against it, we like it just fine. For what does work, for what's fun about it, for what it tried to do, and I guess in its own weird way, the identity crisis that it's having. You know, in the end, it's what makes this movie enjoyable for a lot of people who actually did like it in its first run. But hey, that's just me. Thanks as always for watching, and remember, nothing's impossible. You just gotta believe.